how would you build around them?
Well, so I think because the skill sets are slightly different, if it's Paul George, one of the other guys that you acquire has to have some real creation equity, like somebody who can beat guys off the dribble, attack closeouts effectively. It can't just be like you get 2, 3-and-D standstill guys. Whereas I think you can probably get away with 2 standstill-ish 3-and-D guys next to Jimmy, Tyrese, Joel, just because Jimmy has that ability to put the ball in his hands and beat guys. So I do think the way you build the team changes in a fairly meaningful way for that. Let's call it the fourth. It might not be the fourth guy because it could end up being like Kelly is one of the guys they bring back or whatever.
Yep.
I do not love Kelly on a Jimmy Butler version
I think that
of
would
the
be
roster.
A misuse of resources.
I think if they get Paul George, then there's a better argument for Kelly because his ability to take guys off the bounce and the more questionable shot are not as it's not as impactful if you have the 8 threes a game, 40-ish% 3-point shooter and Paul George. So I don't know who the name is. I was trying to scroll through. Derek, you said $15 million. Yep. Is it over or under?
It's pretty much right at.
Okay, I'm going to have to go over.
So you said 15 and then the 8 for the mid-level?
8, but you can't use that 8 in trade. That's a signing.
Right. So let's just say it's the Kelly Oubre piece, right? And we talk about how much Jimmy Butler does in terms of the mentality and the fit with his teammates. Could his mentality and that winning style of play, could that maybe, and you know Kelly more than I do, much better than I do. I don't know him at all. You just being around him.
Is there any history with Jimmy and Kelly that I'm forgetting about as I'm sitting here?
No.
I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not.
No.
It was only the only one we know about is James, but then again, that's just because that came up last fall.
So with that mentality, maybe, hey, you got your contract, all that. You've been here year number 2. It all worked out. On the floor, leadership, as we lay it all out there, could that be?
Jimmy and Kelly?
Jimmy's leadership, yeah.
I mean, look, part of why you would want Jimmy here for anybody, let alone specific individual guys, is because Jimmy is not a wallflower, right?
Correct.
He is not shy at all. Now, there are real downsides to that. He is coming here and he is going to be Mr. Big Face Coffee, Mr. Give Me the Ball in crunch time, do all that stuff. And there would be, I would say there are more concerns for me for the maxi component if you bring Jimmy here over the long term. Like, how much does Jimmy have the ball? How much is Tyrese allowed to do the things that a star 23, 24, 25-year-old guard thinks they should do? And not so much because I think Tyrese is like, you have to give me the ball every possession, and more because there will be people around him, whether it's his agent, whether it's, and look, this is not commentary on Rich Paul. It's not commentary on his family, who are wonderful. It's just like you're inviting somebody or multiple somebodies to be like, Tyrese, you're not touching the ball enough, man. Like, you're not getting, we saw Tyrese star in crunch time in the playoffs in Madison Square Garden. And now you're just like maybe the third most important guy in crunch time. Like, how does that work? What does that look like, and what happens there? Because
I've seen Caleb Martin go off in the playoffs where Jimmy was giving him the basketball saying, keep going because you're rolling.
Yeah, look, it could go either way. I do think with Paul George, it's pretty clear he's happy to he'll be on the side and just kind of hang out. And there's upside and downside to that, certainly. But I think part of the reason I keep saying that I lean Jimmy is that I think his career has shown the good outweighs the bad. Like, there are real considerations with the personality fit, the skill set. How do you build out around him in a bunch of different ways? But it's pro sports. The means justify the ends. And so I think Jimmy has shown over a long period of time now that he's a guy who can get results when it counts. And so you just kind of, you lean toward that.
We all like the mayor.